Welcome to The Homeless Conservative, a show about principled politics for exhausted citizens. I'm your host, Blake Fisher. I'm a political junkie, so that you don't necessarily have to be. Thank you for joining me. I keep having to do sort of emergency versions of the podcast. I normally do this on Wednesdays, but, you know, the news cycle just will not stop. It will not stop. My wife showed me a great meme. I just wish we could live in some precedented times because everything lately is unprecedented. And it really is. I mean, it's kind of, I don't know. It's weird. You know, so I did a show last Monday, 2 days after the attempted assassination on Trump, which seemed like, you know, certainly the craziest thing that would happen in any year, right? I mean, we haven't had a former president or current president attempted to be assassinated, you know, and actually shot since 1981. So it's been a long time. And frankly, with all that's come out about the Secret Service, I really can't believe it hasn't happened earlier. But, you know, I kind of thought that was the biggest thing. And then in the meantime, we've had a lot of stuff happen. So let me catch you up real quick. Here's the three things we're going to talk about. Basically, catch you up on what happened at the RNC, the Republican National Convention, talk a little bit about Trump's pick of JD Vance as his vice president and Trump's first speech we heard from him at the convention after nearly dying. And then we're going to get right onto the stuff that has overshadowed all of that, which is Biden dropping out of the race. We'll talk a little bit about that, how it came to be, and then the sort of apparent, as of right now when I'm recording this Monday evening at 8 p.m. Central, it looks like they've already completely rallied around coronating Kamala Harris as the Democratic nominee for president. So there's a lot to cover. Again, not even talking about a lot of other really big news stories that would be big news, and I will talk about because I think they're going to have lasting implications, like, for example, Supreme Court decisions that happened last month that we've still not talked about. There's a lot to talk about, but we're going to stick with the stuff that's important this week. Normally, just to give you a heads up of my thinking of what to talk about on these shows, is I don't love to like get on and do right in the moment commentary on what's going on. Because frankly, yesterday when the announcement comes down that Biden's stepping down, I just don't think it would be all speculatory for me to talk at that point. And the truth is, by just waiting a little bit, there's a lot more clarity today. If I would have done an episode yesterday, you would have had a bunch of information that was outdated today, potentially. And so my goal is to only give you information that I think will matter in at least the short term. And by short term, I mean, like, this should still matter 30 days from now if I talk about it. I'm not going to get that right all the time. I'm fully aware of that. I'm guessing as much as anyone else is, but that's why I don't like to talk about some of the petty stuff and some of the stuff that I frankly don't think will last beyond the news cycle. I don't think that's important for you to know. And I assume that you don't, I don't know. I don't know what you want. Let me know what you want. Email me at blake@thehomelessconservative.com. If you want more emergency podcasts, we'll do that. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I just kind of feel like in the current climate, we have a bunch of hot takes. Twitter is basically the ultimate, let's see who can get their first race, which is what I think kind of ruined the media in the early 2000s, was the rush of the combination of a 24/7 news cycle and cable news trying to be first to any story instead of being right about a story. We don't have to go back that far to the 90s during the Bill Clinton-Monica Lewinsky scandal to know that several news agencies had that story and were sitting on it because they didn't quite have a second source to confirm it and stuff. And they were nervous about going to press with something that big without more sources confirming. Because basically the only sources confirming, everyone was pointing back to one source or something. So we've come a long way since the mid-90s of people going like, hold on, we might want to wait a second, to within 5 minutes of Trump being shot, I see every conspiracy theory imaginable coming my way. I don't actually pay attention to this stuff. I know I call myself a political junkie, but just so you all know, I'm not on Twitter anymore. It outlived its purpose for me. I know there's still good information on there. There's still writers that I've thought about getting back on and only following the people that I really enjoy their writing and their sort of thoughts in the middle of the time. The problem is it's too tempting for me to go into the doom scroll and start looking at stuff and get angry. And I don't want to get angry. It's easy enough to get angry with the real stuff that's going on, much less the like hyperbole that's going on the internet. So that's just a little bit into my mind. But I think almost everything that's happened matters in some way, or at least there's also a couple things I want to talk about that everyone's saying will matter that I think is worth pushing back on and saying, maybe this won't. Let's wait and see a little bit. Let's calm down. Okay, so let's start with what happened. So post last week's episode on Monday, we had Donald Trump named JD Vance his vice president nominee. And he gets the nomination, he does a speech. JD Vance, if you're not familiar with him, short biography, grew up poor in Ohio. Of course, now there's some stuff coming out. It's like, he wasn't poor. But let's just say his family, maybe if they weren't poor, were not wise spenders. Let's put it that way. He wrote a book, Hillbilly Elegy. It became a movie. He was sort of a darling of the left, even though he's definitely more conservative. And certainly his viewpoint in that book, in his autobiography, was conservative in the sense that his sort of plea, and I've not read the book. This is me reading other people's stuff, so I'll read the book sometime for sure. I've heard it's great. You can't find it anywhere now. It's sold out. Good for him. He's making some money. But, the point was you can escape the shackles of poverty and drug addiction and all that kind of stuff, and you don't have to blame other people for it. Like, you can get out of this. And he's an example of someone that does. He ends up going to the Marines. He's Yale educated. He's a venture capitalist, Silicon Valley. He's a U.S. senator now. So certainly that's a story we should celebrate as being uniquely I think pretty uniquely able to happen in America and not a lot of other places. And I think we should celebrate that. That being said, I don't love JD Vance because I don't know who he is. He's kind of a question mark because in 2016, he said, Trump might be America's Hitler. He called him the opioid of the masses. He had some very negative things to say about Donald Trump in 2016. Now, for all I know, he thinks Donald Trump is going to lose in 2016. He's trying to be sort of a darling of the left in some ways because he's got a book and it's a movie and it's financially beneficial for him to be on places like MSNBC and The View and stuff, right? That's the cynical version of it. The other version is that he really believed that stuff and then slowly changed his mind once it was like, well, if I want to run for Senate as a Republican, I'm going to need Trump's blessing. So he decided to go all in on Trump, and he did so. And he won a Senate seat in Ohio. Either way, the 2016 version of JD Vance and the 2024 version of JD Vance, there's not a lot of overlap there, in my opinion, policy-wise, sort of the way he talks. And so it seems sort of like a ploy for power. It seems like power and money. And that's normal in politics. I know that people change. I realize my ideal version of a politician with all of their morals intact and not compromising any of those is a little Pollyannish, I guess. It's not very realistic. I realize that people have to change a little bit sometimes to be elected, whatever. I get it. This feels like more of a wholesale change. So I just don't necessarily trust him. And beyond that, his new positions I don't like. I think they're protectionist, which I think is bad economically. I think they are not for smaller government, so that's a thing that I like in the Republican, in the conservative sort of platform, the previous version of the Republican Party. That's not this version of the Republican Party. It's not for limited government. It's for controlling the big levers of government. It's not an argument about should we have a larger federal government or a smaller federal government. It's an argument about who should be running it, liberals or Republicans or conservatives. All these labels don't even make any sense anymore. Liberal means 1,000 things. Conservative means 1,000 things at this point. So, I just don't necessarily agree with them. However, all that being said, I don't know. I didn't think JD Vance was a great choice. I said this before Donald Trump made the choice because I didn't think he was a good choice electorally. He won by 6 points in Ohio, which is a very red state now. I know that some of you, if you're my age, might remember it being a swing state a few election cycles ago. It's no longer the case. It's very red. The governor in Ohio, Jim DeWine, won by 26 points in the same 2022 election. So I think it's safe to say that JD Vance, not a huge unknown in 2022. By the way, he's a best-selling author. He had a movie made out of his autobiography. People knew who he was for sure, and only won by 6 points in a sort of red wave election where the governor won by 20 more points in his race. Now, I don't live in Ohio. I don't know how weak the Democratic candidate was, in the governor's race. There's obviously some factors there, but that's a really big gap. And the idea that JD Vance somehow wins votes in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, these sort of like working class Rust Belt votes, I just don't buy that they're going to be like all in for a Silicon Valley venture capitalist educated at Yale in the U.S. Senate. I mean, like, I could be wrong. It doesn't seem like it adds anything. I think Marco Rubio was the smarter electoral choice. I realized there was a problem there with the president and the vice president being from the same state. I think we could have gotten around that. Obviously, he could just give up his seat and move, or Trump could claim his residency is in New York or whatever. You could figure it out. I think Rubio potentially brings more Hispanic voters. He has an equally compelling story as the son of Cuban immigrants. So I just think Rubio had a bet. And I also think Rubio's a politician. He's been one for a while. I don't love the changes Rubio has made either. I don't think he's voting or saying his principled actual stance on Donald Trump either, but he's been in the Senate for a long time now, and he's actually done it. JD Vance has been in the Senate for 18 months. I think it showed in his speech that he wasn't super great at this politics stuff yet. So, you know, it could turn out that he's more of a liability. I don't necessarily think he's going to like detract from Trump, but he didn't add anyone to Trump's base, in my opinion. And I think that was foolish, knowing that what we know now, Biden could drop out and has now. So, I don't necessarily think it's a great pick, but whatever. Doesn't bother me either way. But so we picked him. The convention basically went off without a hitch. The big thing you're going to hear is that it was unity. They were united. Well, it's really easy to be united when you kick everyone else out of the platform, out of the party that disagrees with you. If the criteria for being in the Republican Party is blind loyalty to Trump, then yeah, I mean, you're going to have unity because everyone else, like, that's the litmus test to be in the party. They've specifically said they don't want people like me in the party. So, okay, I mean, I'm still a Republican, but it's easy to have unity when you don't invite anyone that doesn't agree with you. So I'm not super impressed by unity. You know, I basically did highlights and read what people wrote about it. I watched some of it. I watched a couple of the speeches, mostly like the JD Vance and Donald Trump. Obviously wanted to see Donald Trump's thing, so I turned on the TV, and Kid Rock, I mean, it was like being transported back to the year 2000. Kid Rock is on stage yelling about Trump being a badass and singing a song, and there's all these old white ladies clapping along to. I mean, it was bizarre to see. Hulk Hogan, Dana White. It's strange to me that basically it looked like a professional wrestling or UFC event in the like multiple people that led into Donald Trump speaking. I have two questions about that. One is, do you really think anyone that loves Kid Rock and Dana White and Hulk Hogan isn't already voting for Trump? Again, more people are going to be watching this convention speech than probably any other, acceptance speech ever at a nominee in a presidential election year, because Donald Trump just got shot less than a week before. Like 5 days before this, someone attempts to kill him and misses him within a quarter of an inch. I mean, they hit him, but I mean, missed the important part, and he doesn't die. So a lot of people are tuning into this, and maybe Kid Rock was already scheduled. I would have traded him out for a country star. That's just, if it's me, I'm going to go, look, Bob, we know you love Trump, and we appreciate it, but we need to go after some people that we think might be convinced to vote for Trump. And I think people would understand, right? It doesn't seem like a great idea. And then we get Trump's speech, the first 30 minutes of which, if you haven't seen, he's telling the story about getting shot. And, it was good, and it was heartfelt, and it did seem like a different version of Trump, which we were promised the whole time. Unfortunately, that lasted 30 minutes, and then he went for an hour after that 30 minutes. The speech was over 90 minutes long, and it just turned into the normal Trump campaign rally, best hits. It was sort of like watching the Rolling Stones up there just play the hits, sort of like a weird comedy act. And sort of all the talk of unity and I'm going to be the president for everyone sort of melted away as he went off prompter. The speech was 3,000 words written. Trump spoke 12,000 words. So he made it 4 times longer than it was supposed to be. I think he didn't do himself. Look, Democrats are saying this opened the door, like, oh, that's what's going to make him defeated, is that people realize he didn't really change after being shot. Yeah, I mean, I think most people hedged on that he wasn't going to be a changed man afterwards. I mean, certainly could be. I think if my life was almost ended, it would sober me up a little bit, maybe. But it didn't seem to change the rest of the speech. But the first part is good, and I'm glad we heard from it. I think it's interesting to hear his point of view on it. And he did almost die. And, tributes to the firefighter, the ex-firefighter who, laid on top of his family. I mean, if there's a appropriate use of the word hero, it's for the guy who died saving his family's life by laying on top of them and taking a bullet. There's no words to express how incredibly brave that is. And that deserves the word hero. We throw the word hero around a lot, but man, that's actually a real thing. So Trump, by the way, Democrats, I saw some stuff giving Trump crap about his name was misspelled on the back of his firefighter uniform. There's pictures of it at the firehouse that's misspelled too. Obviously, that was like a mistake from way back when. So, this is again just how the media loves to twist and partisans love to twist this kind of stuff and turn this into like a, haha, look, Trump can't even spell the name of the guy he's trying to pay tribute to. It wasn't Trump's team. It was the firehouse, and that was his uniform, and it was misspelled, it looks like. So these are the kind of like petty things that don't matter, right? But anyway, the speech was okay. I don't think it's not gonna be the thing that cements him as becoming president. It's not gonna be the thing that like opens the door for Democrats to beat him. As we get to the end of this podcast and I talk about Biden getting down, basically nothing matters that happened before Biden stepped down. Nothing. The polls don't matter. Nothing. So as far as the assassination attempt, there were a few updates on that too that I think are worth talking about that I don't think we talked about last week. So it's come out that the shooter was on the roof for a full 10 minutes before Trump took the stage. And Secret Service was aware about it and did not tell Trump or his campaign team. Which, I mean, they would obviously delay if there's a suspicious behavior, a guy on a roof, he has a rangefinder. We don't know if he has a weapon. I mean, because I'm sure they have not confirmed they had a gun yet or something. Who knows? We don't have this whole time up. But 10 minutes before he even took the stage, Secret Service knew there was a guy on a roof that shouldn't be there. I don't know how we couldn't get a person on the roof within those 10 minutes, much less the 19 minutes between the time he got on the roof. Not just got on the roof. Law enforcement was aware of him being on the roof for 10 minutes before Trump took the stage. The Secret Service was aware too. 19 minutes before shots are fired. I do not understand how the Secret Service, the lady in charge of the Secret Service has not resigned or been fired. Biden just will not fire anyone, apparently. He won't do it, no matter how terrible a job. If Trump had not turned his head a little bit more to the right to look at that chart, he's dead. I can't believe it. She actually testified in front of Congress today. I was busy with some other stuff, so I've not actually looked into that testimony at all. But I don't think it went well. Sounds like she kind of stonewalled Congress. I don't think that's a great move. But he also flew a drone, the shooter, a few hours before the rally took place, surveying the area. Secret Service did not have any sort of anti-drone supporter, I guess. It's like he was flagged by multiple law enforcement now we're finding outside the perimeter, inside the perimeter, outside the building, from cops inside that building that took pictures of him. We did find out that U.S. Secret Service was lying, that they actually did deny additional requests for security by the Trump team. We don't know all the details of it, but it has come out that they were like, well, actually, we did deny some of it because I'm sure there was going to be a paper trail they were going to get. So Secret Service is lying to cover their butts at this point. The other thing, allegedly, this is coming from, I think this is from Senator Josh Hawley, who I don't necessarily trust entirely, but he's saying he's been a whistleblower from Homeland Security came forward and said that some of the agents were Department of Homeland Security, not United States Secret Service, therefore were not trained like Secret Service. And of course, we got the sloped roof excuse from the head of the Secret Service that, well, there was a sloped roof, we couldn't put agents on top, even though the snipers that were on the roof across the way were on a steeper sloped roof. It's absolutely ridiculous. So really, some people need to be fired, and there needs to be an immediate, we need a plan today on how the Secret Service is going to protect the candidates and the current president and vice president and all the people it needs to protect. We need a plan today. This is not something that we can risk having someone like this assassinated. And I do think that flags are going to go up. We know there was an Iranian threat against sort of an assassination thing against Trump, which is why they had bumped up some security. Look, if I'm Iran, Russia, North Korea, China, I am going, hey, right now we could take advantage of this. So I think it's important that we fix it, but it hasn't been fixed yet. So, all right. So that gets us to the important stuff. Yesterday, Sunday afternoon, we had Donald Trump we had Joe Biden via a letter he tweeted. So, I mean, we've still not actually heard or seen from Biden at this point. He not resigns from office, but steps down from the running for a second term. And I'm sure we're going to learn how everything went down in the future. It certainly seems like Nancy Pelosi coordinated almost all of this. Just look at the uniformity of the people because basically every day more congressmen and women and senators were coming out and saying, more elected Democrats were coming out and saying, he can't run again. But all of them started with this praise of, oh, he's the best president ever and we love him and he's going to go down in history as one of the best. Like, it's like, all that. And then, but he's got to go. One of which was from someone who sort of mentored him when he came into office in 2014, said he would call him after he was on TV and stuff and talk to him about his performance and give him pointers and helped him kind of understand how Congress works. So this is a mentor of his, like just someone Joe Biden interacted with a lot in 2014, starting in 2014. And he said he didn't that Biden did not recognize him a few months ago at an event. That's the kind of like personal anecdote that I think really started to solidify stuff. And it seems like, this is speculatory, it seems like Nancy Pelosi and Obama maybe, but definitely Nancy Pelosi said, Joe, you can either do this the right way, your way, or it's going to get bad. I'm sure there was a timeline on it. I think it seems reasonable that there was some sort of deadline on it of today, Monday, because we saw last weekend, if you're a junkie like me, that people were reporting that he was going to resign on Sunday and the White House was denying it. His team was denying it. But obviously there was some sort of plan as early as Thursday or Friday for him to do it on Sunday. Maybe Monday was a deadline. I don't know. But obviously Pelosi was involved in this. And she's good at this stuff. So it's kind of crazy. She's not even the Speaker of the House anymore. But Democrats still have to turn to her to be like, hey, fix this mess. And I don't know what they're going to do if she's not in Congress anymore, because she's apparently the only person that can get Democrats to do anything sane. So he's out. So he announces on Twitter or X, which is, it doesn't make any sense to me. The president of the United States, for only this has not happened. The last time this happened was Johnson in, what was that, 68? Yeah, Johnson in 68 is the last person to resign while running for president for another term. And even that was just after the New Hampshire primary, I think. So, this does not happen very often. And he did it on Twitter or X, whatever we call it now. And are we sure? I mean, I saw some people last night talking about has anyone seen or heard from Joe Biden? Do we know that he's not tied up in a basement somewhere with a gun to his head, forced to sign this letter? Seriously, I think that's a legitimate question. We've not seen the president of the United States since he announced he wasn't going to run for a second term and endorsed someone else. For all we know, Kamala Harris put the thing out. I get that. I'm not serious that that's what happened, but come on. I mean, for the conspiracy theories to come out after Trump's attempted assassination that were as ridiculous as they were, this does not seem that ridiculous. We've not seen or heard from him. Whatever. Anyway, he does the right thing. I mean, it's the thing I've been calling on him to do. There's sort of three ways it's being portrayed, though. Okay, so the first one, which is pretty popular on the right and in some pockets of the left, is that this is anti-democratic and he was forced out and they stabbed him in the back. I don't think it qualifies as being stabbed in the back when you repeatedly won't do the right thing. Does that make sense? Biden should have done this years ago. There are reports going all the way back to, the Wall Street Journal had a report that in October of 2021, this is only 10 months into his presidency, he had a meeting with Congress to sort of talk about legislation that went so poorly and he couldn't get his thoughts together that he never met with them again. There's no reason the right time for Biden to say I'm not running again would have been after the midterms in 2022. And we wouldn't have any of these problems. So anti-democratic, people are saying that because in the Democratic primary, 14 million people went and voted in that primary, even though it was really just Joe Biden versus Dean Phillips, who was running against him, who is the only elected Democrat that stood up and had the cojones to get out there and go, look, Biden cannot serve a second term. I like his agenda. I like what he's done. I like his policy, but he cannot serve a second term, and therefore I'm going to run against him and say that. Kudos to him. He deserves the vindication. Not that he'll get it, but, he was right. And we all saw that after the debate, and we all knew this. I mean, if you are remotely conservative or even just have eyeballs, you didn't believe the lies that were spinning about Biden. And look, here's the thing. If it's anti-democratic, we don't have a right in the Constitution to select our candidates via voting in primaries. That's not how it worked until 50 years ago. And I frankly don't think we're getting good results with that because we're just playing to the fringiest parts of the base because not that many people show up in primaries to vote. That's just the simple truth. Saying, oh, it's undemocratic. 14 million people showed up and voted for him. That is not even 5% of the country. So, I mean, is it really anti-democratic to let I think it's anti-democratic to let 5% of the country pick one of the two people that's going to be our president. That's what I think is anti-democratic. I realize people are going to push back and say, well, anyone can vote in the primary if they want to. Yeah, but people don't. So maybe it's time for parties to take that back a little bit and pick their own nominees. Anyway, I don't buy the anti-democratic part. Yes, I do think he was forced out, for sure. I don't think he gets credit for doing the right thing because he didn't do the right thing until he was forced to, until the donations dried up, until there was probably a threat of look, we're all going to come out against you because Democrats were worried about they were worried about losing Senate seats and House seats and even states that were solidly blue and having to spend money there. So they were very worried about it, and they rightfully do so. Now, there's an interesting discussion here did he get forced out because of his age and not being able to do the job? Or did he get forced out because he's losing and there's no way he can win? Which one, because that's a really interesting discussion. Because if it's for the mental problems, if it's for his decline that he can't finish another term, first of all, I don't think he's able to finish this term. I think that we need to have a serious discussion about invoking the 25th Amendment or him resigning and letting Kamala Harris become the president. Because I'm just not confident he can do the job that's required of him right now. Just don't think he can. It's pretty clear. Oh, yeah, because since last week, he had another interview with Lester Holt. Didn't go great. He called his Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin, that black guy, because he couldn't remember his name. The black man. Sorry, not guy. He said the black man. On BET, by the way. On an interview on BET. Is great. So I just don't think he can do the job. But so which is it? Because that's an important question to determine because it will be interesting. It would be interesting to think about what if a party had a primary and they elected someone in that primary, and by July they were getting so shellacked in the polls. Let's go back to, this is kind of a bad situation because we can't really go back to July in any other presidential race because they've been getting longer and longer and longer. Really, that calendar didn't start till August 20 years ago, but it just starts earlier now. But if you saw that your nominee was tanking, could you replace them? We can have that discussion, but here's the truth. The Democratic National Convention can make whatever rules they want, and they can change them at any time they want to select their nominee. They've just been letting people vote for the last 50 years, although they created super delegates to try to sort of hedge that a little bit. And in 2016, they got some pushback from that, so now super delegates can't vote till the second round. And all this is super confusing stuff that no one knows how it works because it's just party politics stuff, and it's trying to get rid of the smoke-filled room and have this full transparency. I would like to go back to some smoke-filled rooms. Honestly, we had better candidates when there was a little bit of deal-making going on. It doesn't bother me. But everything has to be totally in the open, which it's not, by the way. Everything that happened since that debate, I promise you, there's been so much politics going on. There's been people trying to protect their election seat. There's been people that are really trying to put the country first. There's really people that are trying to put their party first. Most people are just trying to prioritize their own ambitions. There's a reason Gavin Newsom is going to endorse Kamala Harris immediately because he doesn't want any bit of this 2024 race because he knows Democrats are probably going to lose. That way he can run in 2028. There is a political calculation to every single elected member in Congress or government anywhere. If they're a Democrat and they have any sort of presidential hopes at all, or even if they don't have presidential hopes, the truth is if they're just in Congress right now and want to retain their seat in November, they have other motivations potentially. I don't know what order they're in, because to me, is it country first, then party, then your seat? I'm okay with that order. But the truth is, you don't care about what's best for the country if you were not doing what Dean Phillips did and come out and say he cannot run again. Dean Phillips right now is the only person I believe that's put his country or his party above his own ambition. And I know that sounds weird because he was running for president, but he was running for president in a race he knew he would lose to bring attention to the fact that Biden couldn't do it. So I give him absolute kudos for that, but everyone else I don't trust, quite frankly. So I don't buy this anti-democratic crap because those voters were lied to by Joe Biden and all the Democrats and anyone else that went along with that. They were lied to. They weren't given all the information before they got to make that decision to vote for Joe Biden. So I just don't buy the argument that, oh, this is anti-democratic. Republicans are going to say that, and Republicans are even saying they're going to try to fight it. There's no way that they can fight this. There's nothing illegal about this. There is no law that says the Democrats have to elect the person that they voted for in the primaries because they made up the rules of their own conventions. The parties get to put forward the candidate they want to. They could just pick them. They can do it any way they want to. The DNC could change the rules right now, tonight, that say, okay, we're going to completely relay. I don't know. They could do anything they want to. They could just pick someone, and that's fine. Joe Biden was not the nominee yet. He's not on any ballots yet. Republicans are going to try to say that, oh, they can't change the ballot stuff. He's not on any ballots yet. He's not been nominated yet. Donald Trump was only nominated and got his, he's only became the party's nominee last Thursday. I know we've been talking about these guys like they're the guys since March or April, but that's not really the case. Yes, they had sewed up enough votes in their primaries, and based on the rules of those primaries would then go on to be the nominees. That doesn't mean that the parties can't change those rules. They won't change those rules probably because they're not brave enough to do so. So it's not anti-democratic. Don't let people tell you that. It's just really insincere because I think Republicans want to run against Biden for obvious reasons because they would beat him. And he'd be really bad for down ballot Democrats across the board. It's not just the president that they're talking about, the race. They're talking about Congress seats. They're talking about governor seats. They're talking about Senate seats. They're talking about all sorts of down ballot Democrats that would suffer if Biden was at the top of the ticket. So they want Biden at the top of the ticket. But look, you can't have it both ways. Which is it? That he's not in control of the country and he's a drooling, pooping his pants, invalid, or, because that's one version of it. Wouldn't you say that person shouldn't be president? Or was it that he was just forced out because he can't win? I think it's the former. I think that that's closer to where Biden really is. It was a mental problem. There's a decline in his age and ability to talk, to speak, to remember things. It wasn't just because he couldn't win. So yeah, I just think it's insincere. But also, how could it be nefarious? Because there's also this conspiracy theory on the right that this was the plan all along. I've been hearing this for forever. The question I get more often is, well, do you think they're just going to kick Joe Biden off and then replace him with Michelle Obama? Michelle Obama. That's the go-to conspiracy theory, is that Michelle Obama will end up being the nominee. You watch. They're going to sneak her in. What would be the purpose of waiting to the last minute to sneak in a nominee? What would be the purpose of in late July having to change out your nominee, potentially having a brokered convention, an open convention, and having that fight on TV and looking like you don't have your crap together? They could have replaced him a year ago. That's not going to change anything about Trump's ability to what's the difference? If you really thought that was going to happen, the smart thing to do would be for Trump to campaign against Democrats in general and their policies in general. And they tried to do that a little bit at the RNC. They tried to be not mention Biden as much because I think they knew that Biden might not be the nominee. So they have to hedge on just saying Democrats because it might be Kamala, it could be someone else. So I just think that this is a ridiculous notion that the Democrats planned this. This would be a terrible, terrible plan. If you really wanted to plan this, you would have forced him out 2 years ago, or at least forced him to say that he wasn't going to run again so that you could have a normal open primary. You could find the candidate and put him in front of everyone and stuff. There's no, I don't think, if this is their plan, it's a terrible plan. If Kamala Harris is their backup plan, and this was their grand scheme all along, because no one's been saying that it would be Kamala, because everyone knows it'd be a bad candidate, which we'll get to in a second. So the other sort of, instead of the anti-democratic force stat, is that he did the right thing for the country and the party. Look, he gets less credit every single day that went by without him making that decision since the debate. And I would argue that There's no way the people around him, and he did not know that there was a problem with his mental decline and his aging at least 2 years ago. But we have stories and anecdotes from well-sourced people. These are people in Congress that say he had episodes in 2021 that they were all there for. Like this is the whole Democratic Congress met with him in October 2021 and said he couldn't finish a thought, essentially. That's a problem. And the fact that all these people lied to us, it really bothers me. But like, he could have done this a long time ago. Democrats could have done this a long time ago. Like I said, Dean Phillips right now is the only one that gets any credit from me for doing the right thing. And so it's too little too late, in my opinion. And right now, every article from anything remotely left of center is like praising Joe Biden. He did the right thing for the country. Bravo, blah, blah, blah. He's a patriot. He is not a patriot, guys. If he cared more about this country, he would have done this even 3 weeks ago, right after the debate. Honestly, that would have given his party more time to pick a candidate that could beat the guy that they claim is an existential threat to the country. So he gets no credit for making that decision. In fact, I think the Democrats will still probably lose in November badly. Do you think his legacy is going to be real warm and fuzzy from Democrats if they let Donald Trump get back into the White House? I mean, just seriously, he will not go down as being the good guy. He's the bad guy. So I don't believe this. He did the right thing. Now, I've said he should have done this, and I will give him credit for finally doing it. But again, he had to be begged and threatened to do so. Doing the right thing because you're being under threat is not. You don't get credit for doing the right thing. Doing the right thing would have been doing it on his own. If he would have come out 2 years ago and been like, I'm not going to run again, guys. Or if even 3 weeks ago, you know what? That debate performance just made me realize that even if he wants to blame it on a bad night, the president can't have a bad night. My job is too important, and so I need to step down. I would have given him huge kudos for that. I mean, I'm not going to say I like him or anything, but look, I would have said that was the right thing to do for his country and his party. But he's selfish and he's got a huge ego. So I don't buy the second excuse that he did the right thing for the country. So, and then the last thing is that, like, obviously, this is where things get tricky. I don't think that it's like I said. So I don't think it was that it's anti-democratic. I don't think that's a good excuse for what happened. I don't think it's that he's a patriot. I think the real thing that happened here is just that politics is a mess, and it's a bunch of people with huge egos that mostly care about themselves. That's at the top of the list, and everything else is underneath that. That's what I really think happened here. And I think the Democratic Party and the Republican Party are full of those kinds of people. Absolutely full of those people. Like I said, right now in the Democratic Party, maybe it's really unfair of me. Obviously, I don't know every single congressperson's name, but there's no way if you are a Democrat and you had ever met with Obama or you knew any of this stuff that I for sure is making its way through the halls of Congress all the time. I'm sure they hear things that we don't hear about Biden. You were trying to protect your party, and if you think Donald Trump is an actual threat to democracy, which they all claim is true, okay? Most Democrats would say that. I say that. I don't think it's the end of democracy, but I certainly think he's a threat to democracy in a way. I mean, he tried to steal an election in 2020. So that's enough for me. I don't need any other evidence to prove to me that he doesn't care about the Constitution and he doesn't care about this country more than his own ego. But I don't think that most elected Democrats are much different. You can't claim Trump is an existential threat to democracy and then not sound the alarm when your guy, Joe Biden, is mentally declining in a way that there's no way he could run again. You better be sounding that alarm years ago, at least 6 months ago, when we still had a chance to do a primary. So I think most people are just looking out for themselves, and to me, it gets it all wrong. I want a politician that puts the country first, then you can put your party, then you can put yourself and your own political aspirations. It's just not clear that there's anyone that's done that, including Biden, including Trump, including JD Vance, including Kamala Harris, including Nancy Pelosi. I mean, Nancy Pelosi might be a close second, although she could have done this a long time ago too. I think she did the right thing here, but to try to salvage, to get a candidate in there that could possibly win, But I think it's too little too late. And I don't think she gets that much credit because she's part of the reason our Congress is so broken. She's part of the reason leadership writes all the laws and just tells people what to vote for. And they don't let any committees do things. They don't let, I mean, if you are a freshman congressman, you have no shot of getting anything done. Nothing you say on the campaign trail is going to happen unless the leadership says, here's the bill. Here's how you're going to vote on it. We're going to give you this 5,000-page bill. In 3 hours, we're voting on it. That's how it works now. That's how Congress functions. It's not healthy. So I don't even give Nancy Pelosi the credit because if she cared about the country or her party or anything more, that would not be the way Congress works. I know she's not the speaker anymore, but she solidified that that is the way Congress works. And she was good at it, to be fair, but I don't think it's the way Congress is supposed to work. So this is all just too little too late, and it's not really good because, and it's not nefarious. Democrats couldn't have planned this worse, I don't think, because now they're going to have Kamala Harris. So let's talk about that, because the other reason I'm glad that I didn't hop on right away yesterday when the news broke is because we had immediately, it was like, well, what's going to happen next? Well, a bunch of people are going to do this. Here's some people that could run, et cetera. But it was late last night. By midnight, Sunday night, it was basically all but confirmed that every Democrat was just going to get in line and coronate her. Kamala Harris herself said, I don't want a coronation. I want to earn this. Which I don't believe, because I mean, who wouldn't rather just have the presidency potentially handed to them than actually have to fight for it? Because I don't think she actually can. This is Kamala Harris, who is reported to have had to practice for a dinner with like some friends, not like friends, but associates or whatever, with her staff. She can't go to dinner like a normal person. She had to be like prepped for it, like it was a debate. I don't know. It's just, she's not a very good politician, so I don't believe for a fact. I mean, you look back to 2020, she was running in fourth in her home state of California and didn't even make it to Iowa before she dropped out because she was so disliked. So I don't understand. She's not good at being a politician. So anyway, the point is, everyone seems to have coalesced around her. It seems like it is going to be a coronation. And that's kind of a bummer because I think that if the Democrats are going to be forced into switching out their nominee this late in the game, why not just go for broke and have the nominating convention and have an open fight with a few people, have a debate? Like, let's actually talk about this and pick the right person. Because here's the thing. Kamala Harris isn't much more likely. In fact, some would argue that she's less likely to beat Trump. Well, okay, let me back up just 1 second. I said this earlier in the show, but I think the important thing to remember is that after Biden dropped out yesterday, nothing that happened before yesterday really matters at all. I don't think it does, because polls don't matter, because all the polls were showing Biden and Trump. Well, it's not Biden and Trump anymore. So all that information goes out the window. Any polls that had Kamala before against Trump, I don't think really matter either, because those were just theoretical. So polling doesn't matter. I'm not going to talk about polling because I don't know what to trust, but I will talk about what I do know and the polling that I think potentially does matter. Okay, so first of all, if it's a coronation, which it does appear to be at this point, now Nancy Pelosi's even endorsed, Obama hasn't endorsed her, but basically everyone else has, including the people that could have been potential nominees, like Josh Shapiro, the governor from Pennsylvania, or Gretchen Whitmer, the governor from Michigan. So they've both endorsed Kamala, Gavin Newsom. So all the names you know of have basically endorsed her. There's still a few people, some donors that are saying, no, I want an open convention. This is crazy. I understand why Democrats don't want it. They're worried that the focus will be on them and not the focus on Trump. And they know that if the focus is on Trump, it bodes worse for Trump. The best thing that Trump has maybe had the best political week of his entire career, other than when he won the presidency in 2016. I mean, really. I mean, just like total, like he almost got assassinated and then gets nominated as convention and has this, at least the first 30 minutes of which is this heart-rendering kind of speech. He had a good political week. And they don't want to continue to not have the focus on his bad qualities that they think he has. So here are my problems with coronating Kamala Harris, okay? And why it doesn't make any sense. And this is me looking at it from an objective stance of here's what I think the problems for her electorally will be. The first problem is, how am I supposed to take you seriously that Trump is a serious threat to democracy if you're just going to circle the wagons around Kamala, who is an obviously weak candidate? I don't have to talk about polls here. I'm talking about, you can look at 2020. She was all over the place on the issues. She was not popular. She wasn't even popular in her home state of California, and she dropped out before Iowa. And she's not proven herself to be a good vice president either. She continues to be disliked. The only poll I will reference here is her likability, her favorable, unfavorable. She is less favorable consistently than Biden is, who is the least favorable ranked president in the history of polling. The Biden administration was underwater in the polls more than even Trump was in his first term. And people thought, and that was, I think, unprecedented at the time. I think Donald Trump had the lowest consistent poll numbers. Biden was like, hold my beer. I can do better, or worse, I guess, technically. Harris's is worse than Biden's. And that's not head-to-head stuff. That's just like, do you have a favorable or unfavorable opinion of this politician? So it doesn't matter who is in the race and who's in the spotlight. Now, to be fair, only 70% of the country can even name the current vice president. So, you got a little bit of a buffer there of people that don't know what's going on, and that's fine. But I just don't understand. Like, she's a weak candidate. So why, if he's an existential threat and you have the chance to replace him now, why would you not try to find the absolute best person and get some sort of data or feeling or polling, or, even just a room full of normal Democrats from Michigan and Wisconsin and Pennsylvania and Georgia and Arizona, the states you have to win, to be like, what do y'all think about Kamala Harris? We don't like her. What do you like about this guy? Here's some list. You may have never heard of him, but here's the things he says. Here's a speech of his. What do you think now? Yeah, I like him more than Kamala. Go with that guy then. It just seems crazy to me to be like, well, we better just all look like we're on the same page. They're doing the exact same thing they did with Biden for the last 2 years and have been lying to us. So Kamala's going to be this handled version of a candidate now. We're not going to get to see her off prompter very much, or else she'll start talking about coconuts and being unburdened from what has been. And she's not good off the cuff. She's not good at it. She's a prosecutor. I'm sure when she can memorize the script, she's great. But if she goes off of it, she's not great at it. Okay, so it doesn't make any sense. Why rally around a weak candidate? Another thing, if the argument is that we have to avoid fighting, like infighting within the Democratic Party, and start fighting with Trump, to me, if you have any doubts that Harris can win, why would you not take that chance? So it can only be one of the two. Are you concerned that Trump is going to win again? Or are you more concerned about your alleged unity? Because to me, you can only be worried, one of those has to, pardon the phrase, trump the other. If your party unity and that matters more, or the down ballot races or whatever, then I can't take seriously what you're saying about Trump. Okay? All right, but here's a decent argument for doing so, okay? As far as doing so, gathering around Kamala Harris. Everyone, and it's very clear if you pull up any news site right now that's not conservative leaning. Pick CNN, NBC, Politico, New York Times, Washington Post. Well, actually, New York Times is still calling for an open convention. They still say we should actually get to have some sort of primary here and not just coronate someone. So to be fair, New York Times is not saying this. However, New York Times is also not going to bash Kamala either right now. Basically, you're going to see everyone, Democrats and organizations in Hollywood, will be in lockstep about her and will continue to try to deceive you on her bad qualities. I've noticed that no one on any of those sites has said the things that I'm going to say here about Kamala Harris in their first reportings. Most of them are only bringing up that, oh, look, they're sexist and racist people, so that's why she might not win. No one's mentioning that she's just a terrible candidate. She has high staff turnover. She obviously wasn't that trusted by the Biden administration. There's all sorts of problems with her, okay? But everyone's going to be in lockstep, and they're going to try to pretend that she's this wonderful person from now on, okay? I find it hard to believe that any left-leaning journalism will be asking about, when did you notice Biden's decline? You're the vice president. Did you notice it a year ago? Who did you tell? Did you tell other cabinet secretaries? Did you consider invoking the 25th Amendment? She's going to have to answer these questions. She's not going to get any of these questions, I don't think, from most of the media. And that's an absolute shame. And I'm happy to be proven wrong, but the media over the last year has not bathed themselves in glory about this Biden stuff. And it didn't work. I think it's important to understand that, like, it didn't work. We all saw with our own eyes the deterioration of his mental capabilities. And so it didn't work, but they're still going to try it. And they're definitely going to try it with Kamala Harris. It is going to be all puff pieces. It's going to all be going to The View and MSNBC Morning Joe. She's not going to show up on Hannity. She's not going to show, I mean, I don't blame her, but I mean, she's not going to show up in any right meetings. She's not going to do interviews. She's not going to be doing town halls with questions from the audience, I don't think. I think it's going to be very, very controlled. Because keep in mind, Biden's campaign, basically, she inherits his campaign staff. It basically just moves from being the Biden campaign to the Harris campaign. And those people have been bubble wrapping their candidate this entire time and using smoke and mirrors to try to make him appear to be. They're going to do the same thing with her. It's just that she's not old. They just don't want her to talk out loud or laugh, for goodness sake. So, you know, they'll try to do that. Can they run out the next 15 weeks? But it's not, they can't just run it out. They actually have to improve the Democratic ticket's chances against Trump. Right now, I assume betting odds would be that Trump will beat whoever the Democratic nominee is, because there's just not that much time left in this cycle. So anyway, I mean, I think that there will be a coalescing around here. You already started to happen yesterday. It was like the news immediately was, who will she pick for VP? It's like, wait a minute. We haven't even picked the nominee yet. And I think Democrats should take this opportunity. I do think Trump's a threat. I don't want him to be the president again. But I've said numerous times, there was not a chance I was going to vote for Biden. People have asked me if there's a chance I'd vote for Kamala. I'm not going to make that decision yet, but I would lean towards a pretty hard no, because that's the reason I wouldn't vote for Biden in 2020. It wasn't because he was old. I mean, he was old and I was concerned about it, but it wasn't as obvious in 2020 as it is now. It was worse in 2020 than it was in 2012, but him picking Kamala to me solely because of her skin color and her gender, which are things that she cannot control at all and have nothing to do with her success or failure as a politician or a DA or anything. And he decided that's the qualifications that I need for a vice president who is a literal heartbeat away from my really old but dying, you know, and I was like, Biden is not taking this seriously, and I do not think she's ready to be the president. Frankly, I don't think JD Vance is either, and Trump is old. And that, I don't really want a president with zero experience. I don't love that. I'd like someone to be a governor or a senator for a while and get some idea of how government works. So frankly, I would say the same thing about JD Vance right now. But Kamala Harris bothers me even more than JD Vance. So I don't necessarily think this is great. So, Republicans that are claiming this is the plan all along, again, I don't buy it because it was a bad strategy, but I will admit that it's the only believable part is that we will be lied to about Kamala, like I said. I mean, so they are right about that. The conspiracy theorists are right that, like, this is going to be an all-out blitz for, like, all positive stuff about her and all negative stuff about Trump. But that's expected, It doesn't work necessarily. Didn't work in 2016. It barely worked in 2020. 2020 was a very weird year, but it's just not working so far. So I just wish the media took a chance. It'd be, like I said, it'd be nice if the Democratic Party took this chance to say, you know what, we should do this the right way. Even if it might be messy and even if it could be bad, we should do it the right way in the way that we think is most likely to beat Republicans. Because that's the Democrat Party, that's their job. Just like it's Republicans' job to beat Democrats, okay? When it all boils down to it. But, the media should do the same thing and take a look in the mirror and go, like, what have we done to contribute to this mess of a situation? It would be nice if they don't do that with Kamala Harris. It would be nice if they actually said, you know what, we're going to treat her. Like I said, this is just wishful thinking. It's not going to happen. So, but this is why we keep getting bad nominees, is because the parties don't control this stuff. They just really don't. There is not some nefarious machine, or we wouldn't have had. Like I said, if this was the deep state, why would the deep state keep Joe Biden on until July and then kick him off and then Kamala Harris is the replacement? Like, none of this is a good plan. If this is the deep state's not very good. I don't believe that the deep state has the control they do if this is how they do it. Doesn't make any sense. Biden just shouldn't have ran. That's essentially, he should have quit in 2020, but he didn't. So I just think that The Democrats are specifically a weak party because they would rather be fair and not hurt people's feelings than to win power in elections. They rolled over and said it was Hillary's turn in 2016. It was basically like, look, we got to give her her shot. They basically told Joe not to run in 2016. I mean, I know his son had just died, but I think that was a convenient excuse for saying, we think, Joe, you're kind of an idiot. And it's Hillary's turn. And, she didn't get a real serious primary. And the proof that she was so unpopular is that Bernie Sanders almost beat her. So, and then in 2020, it was Joe's turn. Now, to be fair, I think Joe was the right Democratic candidate that year, as far as he was the one that could beat Trump, I think. Although, I would argue there were better candidates on that stage, potentially, but most of them had gone so far into trying to be Bernie Sanders, I think Elizabeth Warren, that they kind of made a clown show of it. I don't think that's what people really wanted in 2020, and that's why he won. And it should be said, for anyone that says you can't kick Kamala off the ticket and you can't not give her a turn because she's black and a woman is also ridiculous, because black women specifically, they wanted Biden in 2020. They did not want Kamala. They didn't like her. So I don't know why everyone's so scared of offending black people. Kamala Harris polls worse with black people than Biden did. I think that black people have agency, and I don't think that they're racist to the point where they're like, oh, if it's not a black woman, I'm not voting for a Democrat. That's not historically true. And it's also just plain by looking at it that they don't really like her either. And that's okay. I think they'd want to win like anyone else that's voting in an election. I think they're like, oh, I would like Democrats to win. They don't like Trump, although Trump's winning more black men voters than he's taking that away from the Democrats. So, it doesn't make any sense. So, but they're weak. It's like they're afraid to hurt people's feelings. And now they're doing that with her, which this is, live by the diversity hire, which, I have a problem with this diversity hire stuff. Sorry, this is going long, guys, but I'm going to be on a lot of rants because there's just a lot going through my mind. But here's the thing. You can't have it both ways if you're on the left. They say diversity is good and we should hire for diversity. That's the number one priority of companies now. And we want to be diverse and we want to be diverse. And then when I call someone a diversity hire, they're like, how dare you? But you're bragging about the diversity hire. So which is it? Is it a thing you're proud of? Or is it a thing that I'm not allowed to bring up? Because the truth is, it's very clear. Kamala Harris was not the most qualified person to be the vice president even in that field of people that ran. Cory Booker would have been a better choice. He's also black. It's not because I have a problem with race. It's not the woman thing. Amy Klobuchar would have been a better choice. She at least shores up some Midwest mom vibes that might have won Biden the Rust Belt more. I'm just saying there were better people that were better served to be the vice president, that were better electorally even for him, even if you just want to go that road. But because he was like, no, it has to be, I'm going to pick a black woman because I guess, to be fair, I don't actually think Biden promised that. I think he only promised that with his Supreme Court pick. I think that he did say it would be, I think he said it would be a minority for sure. He said one of the two, but I'm pretty sure it was the woman part and not the minority part, but I don't remember. It doesn't matter because the point is, if he just would have picked someone without saying this is why I'm going to pick him, that's the other thing I don't like about this. By all measurements, his Supreme Court pick, Brown Jackson, is qualified for the job. But when you come out and say, I'm going to pick a black female to be the Supreme Court justice, it kind of immediately squashes her resume because the first thing they're looking for on the resume is your skin color and your gender, both of which I don't think matter a hoot on being a Supreme Court justice. I would like to have different people's perspectives, but here's the perspective I'm more interested in. I'd rather have someone not from Harvard Law on the Supreme Court. They all went to the same school, but one. There's just let's talk about diversity, but let's actually talk about diversity that matters. Diversity of thought, diversity of ideals, diversity of your skin color doesn't make you any different. I mean, I realize you're going to have a different experience, but I'm more interested in someone's life experiences. Now, if that has to do with their skin color, okay, that's fine. If you grew up, dealing with racism and stuff, that's an interesting part of your story. But just because you've got black skin doesn't mean you're going to be better at the vice presidential job. And so it's like I said, they built this house and they got to live in it now. So I don't feel sorry for Democrats in a way because it's like, look, this is your thing. And now they're going to, but what does bother me about it is that it is going to get Donald Trump elected again. And that's just like, it's probably going to happen. And it's going to be because the Democrats couldn't, look, the Republicans are a mess. Republicans have all the blame for nominating Donald Trump again. And I've voiced my opinion about that many times. I'm look, guys, you guys are going to pick the only person that Biden could maybe beat. They could have picked Nikki Haley. They could have picked Ron DeSantis. They could have picked Chris Christie, Doug Burgum. They could have picked any of those other people on the stage other than Vivek Ramaswamy. He's not serious. But everyone else on that stage in the Republican primary was serious, I believe. And wouldn't be in a situation where, anyway, the point, and so the part pox on everyone's house, essentially. But Charlie Cook at National Review points out that basically the Democrats have not had a genuine political talent since 2012. Because Hillary was just Bill's wife, and we have some sort of weird thing in this country where we think that if someone has talent of any kind, specifically politically, well, their spouse inherits it, obviously. Like the fact that anyone's talking about Michelle Obama being the nominee, there's no indication to me that Michelle Obama even likes politics. There's no indication that she has any desire. It was obvious when Clinton was the president that Hillary had ambitions, but that's fine. You can have ambitions, but she didn't get her husband's talent. She wasn't good at it. She makes kings. She ran against Barack Obama in 2008. He became president. She ran in 2016 against Donald Trump. He became president. She's really good at anyone she goes against. They become the president. Pretty interesting. So yeah, so basically they've not had, Barack Obama is their last talent to emerge for the whole party. That's 2008. That's 16 years ago. So they've got problems too. So, I mean, I do think it's very likely things can obviously change. They could have changed by the time this came out on Tuesday morning. But Kamala Harris is probably going to be the nominee. Now, I mean, someone could challenge her. Maybe it doesn't happen. Maybe she has such a bad week this week or next week that they go, oh, we should have an open convention. I hope that happens, honestly. I think it would be, really interesting to watch. I think it'd be fun. I think it'd actually get to witness some real... I think that is democracy. Democracy doesn't have to mean we vote as populist, we vote popular vote to do everything. I don't think that's what democracy is. I think we've got this representative republic, and like I would like to see the parties do something like, let's have a little open convention. You know, it probably won't happen in my lifetime, but people are also excited about this prosecutor versus criminal stuff. I'm not quite as jazzed about that. I don't think it's going to be the slam dunk the Democrats think it's going to be. I think it's a bad campaign strategy, which means Kamala Harris will probably definitely do it. But talk about what that's leaning into what's already being perceived as lawfare. There's already this whole thing where everyone thinks that every criminal case against Donald Trump was a coordinated effort by Biden and the DOJ and Democrats to keep him in the news. And every day that passes by, it seems more likely that that's the case. I mean, I think they wanted all these trials to be going on during the whole campaign. There was a reason they were trying to get all these trials started by March, right when conveniently Super Tuesday and the primary starts. And all of them at this point have the New York one he gets convicted of, but we all know that was a sham. And the documents case has now sort of fallen apart. And we haven't even talked about the documents case. That's the other thing that happened last week is that the judge in the documents case, Mar-a-Lago, the documents that Trump had there, the classified documents, said, no, she's throwing it out, not really throwing the whole case out, but she's throwing it out because Jack Smith does not have the constitutional authority to bring a case. And I think she's actually right. There's some interesting legal arguments there that I'm not going to get into, but I think she's right. But basically, the problem can be solved. All Biden has to do in Merrick Garland is they just have to assign a prosecutor that's been either hired by the executive branch specifically, and the Senate has confirmed, or they has to work under one of those prosecutors. And right now they're trying to say, oh, he's totally independent of the Department of Justice. And the judge is saying, that's not legal. He has to be, to bring a case, to charge a case, he has to be, it's not just an investigation. Some people would say that the Mueller situation potentially says, well, no, but there's a situation where it was independent. I don't know. There's, like I said, they're going to fight this out legally, but it sounds like all they would have to do to get the case going again is assign it to a different prosecutor or put Jack Smith officially under another prosecutor at the DOJ. But Biden and Merrick Garland trying to say this whole time, it's not us. We have nothing to do with this. But the Department of Justice is under the executive branch, and so it is under Biden, and this is all kind of like a way that they try to insulate themselves. So that also happened. I forgot about that. That's also that adds to Trump's political week last week. So, her running as the prosecutor, I think will just inflame that argument. And so I don't think it's a great way to do it, but she'd probably do it. So I just don't think the media is going to be honest. So be ready for that. You're going to see puff piece after puff piece about Kamala Harris. And who knows, maybe she has developed a political talent, or maybe with the right team, she'll run a good campaign. I find that hard to believe, just judging by her past experience and past performance, but we'll see what happens. But right now, if I had to make a bet, I think Trump beats her. If she's the nominee, Trump's going to win. So people need to start probably resigning themselves to that. That's what I think will probably happen. Could be wrong. Obviously, I'm wrong about a lot of stuff, and I don't like to try to predict stuff. It's kind of fun, but I don't think it's important for me to be right or wrong. I don't want you to listen to me just because you think I'm right about everything, because I'm not. I'm not right about everything, and sometimes we have to speculate. I'm going to try not to do it a ton, but that's my speculation right now. Kamala is as bad of a candidate as Joe Biden. She obviously doesn't have the age issue, but that's the only issue she doesn't have as baggage. She has to own his record. She has to own the border stuff, not only because it was Joe Biden's border, but he put her as the border czar. She has to own his cognitive decline and not sounding the alarm bells about it, or she has to admit that she never noticed it, which makes her dumb, or she has to say, I didn't have access to the president, which means the president didn't trust her capabilities or opinions or whatever. None of those are good options for her. So the only thing she has going for her is the age thing. That's it. She's not 81. She has all the rest of his baggage, and including there's some, there is going to be some racism and sexism that goes on here. There will be, no doubt at the margins. Biden was actually winning with older white men. I don't know for sure that you replace him with her. I think whether this is fair or not, she doesn't have kids, and maybe some women don't like that she doesn't have kids because maybe they think having kids is such an important part of so many people's lives in this country that it's an important perspective to have. I'm not saying that's why I don't like her. I'm saying people will not like that about her. Some people will love that about her, but it's just about are there more people that vote for that, or are there more people that vote against her because of that? This is how politics works. And so I think picking her and just circling the wagons around her is going to end up being a mistake. But Democrats don't listen to me. Shocker. Even though I think that they will at least have a shot at winning in November if they did that. But they don't have to listen to me, obviously. All right, thanks for tuning in. I hope I'm providing you some sort of real value and not just adding to the noise of this current political climate. If you enjoy the show, like it, rate it, subscribe to it. Tell a friend, too. I know you have a friend that you send political memes to. I know you have one. We all do. Of course, I'm a little bit more wonky. I'm less memey. I do have one memey kind of thing I made almost a year ago. It might seem kind of mean-spirited now about Joe Biden falling down and not being able to complete sentences. That's really the only one I've done. Sorry. I'll try to be more memey, maybe. But thanks for joining me. Maybe nothing will happen this week and I can talk about something like the Supreme Court decisions or Donald Trump's trials or something that's happened in the last month that we haven't had a chance to because everything else has been so crazy. Here's to hoping that happens and we can just talk about something normal next week. But I'll catch you next time.